I'm here with author Taran Matharu. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for sitting down with me.
No problem. Looking forward to it.
When did you first decide that you were going to pursue being an author full time? Was that your original goal?
I mean, I think I was 9 years old when I decided I wanted to write. I never thought it would be my career. It was kind of a dream career when I was 9, but so was being an archaeologist. But I kept writing my entire life. Took a bit of a break when I went to university, but my parents had always said being an author isn't about a job, like you won't be able to make a living from it. So I studied business at university instead of writing or creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only after I was headhunted by Penguin Random House to work in their sales team to use my kind of business side of things in the publishing industry that I realized that authors were just normal people who had a story to tell. They weren't, Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard grads or anything like that. They were just people who loved writing, loved reading, and had a story to tell. So that made me think, hey, I can probably pursue this as well.
Mm-hmm. And when you were in college, what did you pursue as your major?
It was business administration at Bath, which is the #1 business school in the United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find business very interesting, and I think business actually helped me get a book deal because of the way that I kind of built my following online. I pursued it very much like I was starting a business, and that helped me somewhat. So I don't regret studying business, but I almost wish I'd been able to do like a fusion course, kind of like some people do Spanish and management. I wish I'd been able to do like business and creative writing,
Yeah.
which doesn't exist.
Now,
Maybe it should.
Talk a little bit about how you went about getting yourself published and getting yourself, an agent and all that stuff. And then obviously we'll move into the ideas that you had for the books.
Okay, so I just finished my internship at Penguin Random House. I'd presented to all the top directors on various things. It was really exciting, but they Penguin and Random House had just merged. In fact, I started work on the day of the merger, and they weren't hiring for a while because of everything was so frenetic. So they said, maybe come back like next year and we'll have something for you, but for now, like, take it easy. If you want to get another job, we won't blame you. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and take a big trip to Australia and kind of travel around there. But I had a month to kill before I was gonna fly off, so I thought I'm gonna write a book in this month. It was National Novel Writing Month. Do you know what National Novel Writing Month is?
I'm not familiar with it.
It's really cool. It's where authors try and write 50,000 words in 1 month, which is a big task. It's about half a book, maybe 2/3 of the book, depending on book length. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to try it. So every day I'd write a chapter, which was roughly between 1,400 and 2,000 words long. And I'd put it on this website called Wattpad that I'd found out about from my boss at Penguin.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting because when he came to my university to talk about publishing, he mentioned it as one of the things that was changing the industry. In my job interview, he mentioned it, and every time I pestered him to let me talk to an editor about my writing, he just told me, "I'll stick it on Wattpad," kind of perhaps to make me pester him less.
Right.
And I don't think he actually realized that it would be my jumping point into publishing, and he actually still kind of doesn't quite believe what actually ended up happening. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I put each chapter on this website called Wattpad. Wattpad is kind of like the YouTube of books. It's famous for One Direction fan fiction, which is what a lot of it is, or Twilight fan fiction. Kind of, but it's not a exclusively fan fiction website. But there are books on there that have billions of reads, which are just a One Direction fan fiction story. But I was going for something different. I was writing a book, kind of young adult fantasy book, which doesn't traditionally do particularly well on there. But I thought, hey, let's go for it. After the first month, it hit 100,000 reads, which actually isn't that unusual on Wattpad. At least 100,000 reads isn't unusual, but 100,000 reads in a month is unusual. After 4 months, it had reached 1 million reads. And that's when a journalist from NBC News got in touch and said, hey, I'm doing a piece on serialized fiction. I'd love to talk to you about, how your book's done on Wattpad and stuff. And it was only 2/3 of the way through.
Mm-hmm.
When I started backpacking in Australia, I stopped updating a chapter each day, and it was once every week, then once every 2 weeks. So I had this sample online. I hadn't finished it yet. But the day after the article came out, Audible got in touch and asked if I was, interested in selling the rights. And at that point, I knew I had something. I had and I really wanted to finish this book and get it published, but I also wasn't sure if Audible were the right people to sell it to. I didn't have an agent yet. I know that some publishers, they won't take any deal at all if they don't have audiobook rights on the table, so I couldn't give them away to Audible. So I did some more research, and I decided to contact some British agents, because all the ones I contacted before were American. And I spoke to some people that I'd met in the industry, and they gave me a list of 3 names that were the best agents for the genre I was writing in. And I sent an email to each of them explaining my situation. They all offered representation. One of them offered representation within 3 hours. She literally blasted through the sample and offered a representation like immediately. And all 6 agents that I had to choose between them, it was probably the most stressful time of my life, really, choosing between these agents, because they're all excellent negotiators. They're great self-promoters. I mean, it's what they do for a living. So they were all telling me different things, and I was very confused and nervous, but I ended up going with my agent, Juliet Mushins, and I don't regret the decision at all. And she did great things with my book. And what ended up happening was she sent the book out to various publishers around the world. It went to auction in the UK, went to auction in Germany, went to auction in America. It was preempted in Brazil, which is when somebody puts a big offer on the table for 24 hours, and then if you don't take it, then the offer's off the table and you never get it again. So it's basically this way of preventing an auction. And we ended up taking the deal because it was a great deal, and they were a great publisher. And it's now in 11 languages around the world. Book 1 and 2 hit the New York Times bestseller list recently. It's doing really well. The 3rd one's coming out in May,
right.
And I just sold 4 more books, one more in the current series, and 3 in a new series. And that's just at the moment to my UK and US publisher, but I'm sure more deals will follow soon.
Now, when you started this story, did you know you were going to have it broken up into 4 parts, or are you adding to it as you go because you know there's more story to tell?
I envisioned it as a trilogy, but I also wrote a short, free novella prequel called Summoner Origins, which is a short story about the teachers at the academy in the book, and the parents of some of the students in the book at this academy. And it was my way of thanking all my fans on Wattpad for their support, for reading my book, for encouraging me. And also the fact was that they'd been reading this book for free, and I wasn't able to give the rest of it for free. So I said to them, hey, listen, you need to go and buy it if you'd like to read the rest of the book, because I've become a published author and I need to make a living. And it was a very positive reaction, so I wanted to thank them for that. So I wrote this prequel. And when I came back to my publishers to sell my new series, they said, we really want another book in the series. It's just doing really well, and the fans really want more of this world. What do you think about writing a 4th? And I said, well, the story of Fletcher is finished in this trilogy, or if it was to continue, it would need to be another 3 books in a new trilogy, which I'm not ready to do yet.
Right.
So I said, well, what if I turn this prequel novella, which really was just an introduction to the story of Arcturus, who's the protagonist, why don't I turn that into a full-fledged novel? And they said, that's great, because people loved the prequel, and it really did feel like just an introduction into the world rather than his full story. And so that was how I ended up being contracted for this 4th book, which is a prequel. So yeah, it's very exciting.
And now your new series that you're going to start is completely new characters?
It's completely different. It's actually a different genre. It's science fiction, but it's still got a lot. It's still got sword fights. It's still got it's written in the same kind of style. It's got a lot of different historical elements to it as well, which I can't talk about it too much just yet, but
right.
It's very exciting, and I can't wait to make my big announcement and tell my fans what it is.
What's your process for when you start writing the book? I know you said that you had that thing already had been laid out. Do you end up getting so attached to the characters that you don't necessarily want it to end? Do you have a hard time wrapping it up? And
I mean, I did shed a tear when I wrote the last line of the 3rd book, which isn't out yet. But it was more a sense of relief that I'd managed to finish the book in the way that I wanted to. Some writers write themselves into a corner. I've been lucky that I've never had that issue, but it can be tough. And obviously I had a deadline, so I was happy I'd reached that. But Yeah, I think I'd always wanted the story to end in that way, and it is hard to let go of these characters that you love, and that's why I have in my mind a future series that I could write. But I'm not as excited about that continuation of Fletcher's story as I am about this new series that I've just kind of created. So we'll see. But I like that Fletcher's journey is perhaps not completely done. So that's always in the back of my mind as well.
And when things get tough for you when you're writing and you feel like you're either writing yourself into a corner or you can't come up with a more full-fledged idea to keep the story moving, what do you kind of do to get yourself out of that rut?
Well, like I said, I don't have that rut as many authors do. I just haven't come across that yet. Perhaps it's because I have a structure to the story already pre-planned, so I know what the next scene will be, usually. What I tend to do is I have a sequence of events that I know must happen in the book, and I write between those events kind of free-flowingly, which is always fun. It makes my writing more flexible, but it gives it a structure to make the story cohesive. So that's kind of what I do to avoid writing myself into a corner or getting writer's block as many authors end up having.
What do you do for time management in terms of, okay, I have to write a certain number of words per day or a certain per month? Do you just go full-fledged into it and write as much as you can and then like give yourself a little bit of a break? What's your process for that?
So usually I use an app called Scrivener or a program called Scrivener to write on, and it has this great function where it calculates how many words you need to write each day to reach your target word count in the time frame that you specify. So every day I'll see you must write 450 words a day, and if you miss that day, then it adds a couple more words onto your running, like your daily word count. So you know kind of how far behind you are. Generally, I don't start writing after I've handed in my book. It's a year before before I need to hand in the next one. So I take a little bit of a break. I'm editing the book that I've just handed in anyway. So usually I have a 3 or 4 month break. I'm letting things percolate. I'm kind of reliving the story as I edit it, and I'm thinking about how the next book is supposed to go. I've obviously already got an idea of what's going to happen, but it's definitely more free-flowing in my head in those kind of months leading up to when I start writing. And probably about 6 to 4 months before my deadline is when I really start writing, targeted daily word counts. And the word count that I need to do each day increases as I miss days or I don't write as much as I should. And eventually in the last month, it's a kind of really intense process where I'm just writing kind of consistently throughout the day, making sure that I hit that deadline. I think the difficulty can be is that I've said 95,000 words, so I'm doing 1,000 words a day. But what happens if you get to 95,000 words the day before your deadline and there's still like 10,000 words left of a story? You didn't predict how long it should be. So that's one issue that I sometimes come across. But luckily, I tend to give myself a little bit of leeway. I put my book deadline, my internal deadline, 3 weeks before the final deadline, and my publishers are also very flexible with me. They make your deadline a year before the book comes out for a reason, so that if you miss your deadline, it's no problem. They could give you another 5 months, and it probably wouldn't be an issue.
Now, someone watching this may not have any background on you or your books. What would you say to somebody who you would like to draw in to read these books? What's the hook for you to get people in, as they say?
So a lot of people find it quite surprising when I describe the book this way, but it was sold to my publishers, and a lot of my readers agree with me that it's like a mix between Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Pokemon. And when you try and picture that in your head, it doesn't, you can't really see it, but when you read it, you totally understand where all the influences come from. The concept is about an orphan boy. He's a blacksmith's apprentice in a village, a kind of backwater village in the Empire of Hominum, and he discovers that he has the ability to summon demons, which is an ability that's almost exclusively reserved for the nobility. He doesn't know who his parents are, and he's quite surprised by this ability, and he ends up going to Voken's Academy, which is a summoning school where novices are taught the art of summoning. And there's a big war going on in the background between the humans and the orcs, and there's also dwarves who live in the Hominum Empire as well, who are kind of second-class citizens in this world. They're treated very poorly, but their technology is needed. They're able to make muskets and kind of old-school old-timey pistols, which are needed in the war. So the humans are giving them more and more rights in order to kind of be allowed to use these new military technologies. So that's part of it. So there's a big kind of war going on in the background. There's lots of politics, and at the school there's a divide between the nobles and the commoners as well. The commoners who have the rare ability, and the nobles who all inherit that ability. And Fletcher as a demon, he's a salamander. There's various lessons that they have at the school. There's summoning lessons, there's demonology lessons, there's spellcraft lessons. So I like to think it's a pretty cool concept, and it's just got a lot of action, a lot of intrigue, and it really is like a mix between Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Pokemon.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule here in New York. Best of luck with your book signings this weekend. I know you're going to be doing some stuff with Wattpad. How does that feel to be able to come here to New York and get to meet your fans that saw you launch kind of on this app?
It's really exciting. I mean, I know a few people who have messaged me saying, that I've spoken to before on Wattpad. I have no idea what they look like. Who have said, "Oh, I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Wattpad convention." So that's really exciting. I don't actually get to meet my fans as much as I would like. I don't do that many signings in the UK, so it's really exciting to I have a much bigger fan base in America than I do in England. So it's going to be exciting. I can't wait to meet them.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.